Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Last May, I asked FINRA, the CEO there, Richard Ketchum, about the negative effects of the 2013 rule enacted by the British government that had such an impact on low to moderate income consumers in the UK, and on whether enacting a similar rule as the DoL has proposed would have those impacts here in the United States. Now, this is a point that Mr. Scott referenced, but there's a study in the UK that found that during the first 3 months of 2014, 310,000 British clients stopped being served by their brokers. And the reason was because their wealth was too small for the broker to advise profitably, and an additional 60,000 investors were not accepted for the same reason. And Ketchum concluded that the statistics here are certainly concerning. Moving to an environment where only advisory accounts are the only effective way to operate in the United States is a very bad step, and that with respect to middle-class investors, the availability of the choice between fee-only and commissions is important, unquote. And since I spoke with Mr. Ketchum, the British government embarked on an official review of the impacts of its rule, while the DoL claims that there is little evidence that investment advice has decreased significantly in the United Kingdom. That's the Department of Labor's argument, while the British are in the middle of trying to get to the bottom of this impact. And so, Mr. Stevens and Ms. McNeely, what caused the UK to initiate the review? Are they investigating whether the regulation has created an advice gap, cutting off lower and middle income servers from investment advice? Is that your understanding of what they're looking at there? And let me ask you that question.
That is my understanding, Congressman, that they're looking at a species of the same problem that we predict might happen under the DoL proposal. Remember, in my opening statement, I mentioned 20 million individual retirement account holders who have balances of $25,000 or less. That's 20 million people for whom the economics of a fee-based model are highly questionable. It's interesting, the Labor Department, Secretary Perez has touted the idea of the robo-advisor as a solution here. The robo-advisors are a fairly new innovation. We love innovations in the marketplace, and they may be delivering very good services, but it's hard for me to believe that in an 8-month implementation period, this new approach to the provision of advice is going to suddenly be able to manage a 20 million person strong investor base that has no longer access to a commission-based model. The other thing to say about robo-advisors is this is the same Department of Labor placing its faith in that won't allow retirement plan sponsors or service providers to use email to deliver plan documents. So on the one hand, we have this huge digital divide that requires us to continue to put out paper. On the other hand, my gosh, let's have millions of people rely upon robo-advisors. It does not make sense.
And Ms. McNeely.
I would concur and just say that I know advisors who are currently working in the UK, and many of them had to let go of all of the small accounts that they had in their book of business simply because it wasn't allowed for them to be paid via commission. And quite frankly, the smaller accounts, the smaller retirement savers, without question, it is far more cost effective for them to use a commission-based model. And if they don't have that choice, we will see some significant challenges in continuing to give advice to the very people, from my perspective, that need our advice the most.
And Secretary Perez has stated unequivocally that the DOL's proposed rule would not have similar impacts to that of the UK rule. Let me ask you if you agree with that.
I do not agree with that. Okay.
And I would ask the same question of Mr. Stevens.
I would not agree with it either, Congressman.
98%